I think the best way to describe it, and I've said this for a while, that it's the great Connor McLeod from the Highlander movie. There can be only one. And it wasn't if, but when. You can't put King Kong and Godzilla in the same room and not expect them to square off at some point in time. Too many egos. So, what do you make of it, man?
We were talking a little bit off air about it, but all too predictable, right? I mean, I had the hopes just because I think that Elon can be a very influential and helpful, obviously helpful character and part of the Trump administration. At the same time, I think that he's totally justified in being really frustrated. I mean, you sit there and do all the work at Doge and watch the dealerships go up in flames and take all the bullets he's taken personally for that. And then you turn around and pass a bill that increases the deficit by $450 billion or something like that.
Look at this. You spent God knows how much of your own money to help him get elected and the Republicans. On top of that, Zach, you also took slings and arrows pre the election and run up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then you did all the work. And you didn't even get an ugly gold watch on the way out handshake. You got pushed aside slowly and then one half-assed afternoon press conference and away you went.
Well, yeah. And then the other part of it too is that if you go back, for those people that didn't watch this unfold, and it's one of the advantages of doing what I do for a job. I'm sitting in front of screens all day long and it's certainly part of it. But when you watch it unfold, the first comments that Elon made were not personal at all. And it was totally directed at the bill. He wasn't even saying anything about Trump. And I watched a couple of those because he was going directly after the bill. And I watched a couple of those tweets and I go, Trump's he's going to respond. He shouldn't. He should just leave this alone and handle it with class and just say, Elon and I agree to disagree on this, but we thank him again for his service. Is that what he does? No, he can't. He's got to bark at every passing car. And, it just reminds me of that old adage, or not old adage, but something I've been saying since the first Trump term, which is, I think he's a pretty good doctor. I just think he's got a really bad bedside manner.
Yeah. I think it's a great way to put it, man. I mean, he is, I've said this since day one. He could pick a fight with his own shadow in a dark room. Right? Like, he leans into it, Zach. He loves the fight. He loves to do this. But this is a different world, right? This isn't some senator. This isn't some congresswoman or person that you can primary. This isn't even some faraway, foreign leader that has nowhere near the power you do. This is a man who, as I said earlier today, could flip a coin for your wealth, and if he loses it, laughs.
No, yeah, he could financially target you and ruin you just for a good time for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
And that's obviously not the most important thing, and I'm glad that the president isn't making decisions as it relates to what benefits his net worth, at least as far as this situation goes. But it also it does nothing to strengthen, like, what you really need to get what Trump wants done, and to get what he says he wants done, and what I would like to see done in this country is, look, you got to come to the realization, and I know I'm not telling you and the vast majority of your listeners anything they don't know, but to fix the things that we need fixing, in this country, you have to form some type of bipartisan coalition. Yeah. And I think Elon Musk made that a much easier task. By and large. Now, he's not going to win over the wokies, but nobody is, right? I mean, unless you dye your hair blue and start saying that little boys are, is the same as pregnant women. I mean, you're not getting, you know what I mean? Those people aren't going to agree with you anyway. They're insane. But I think Elon greatly increased the size of the conservative tent. I think he made it okay for a lot of intellectuals to, think differently and speak differently and say things differently. And it just doesn't help anything.
No, and he's got the money too. Because like I equate it to, you got to pick between mom and dad right now, because he's threatening, Trump will come after you, don't vote for the big bill. There's only a few people that are going to be able to get away with it and unscathed, because, like Thomas, like Massey and the few of these guys that are always a no. But man, this, Zach, you're sitting there. He just said a little while ago, again, Elon said, you should pick me over him because he's going to die before me. And as if to say, I'll ruin your political life for decades if you don't make the right call, kind of. They didn't just burn the boats. They drained the water after they burned the boats. Then they put hot lava in there to make sure there was no retreat. And when you tweet about Epstein like he did,
yeah,
that you're implying something.
You're going all in is what you're doing, right?
Oh,
like the gloves are off. The other thing is that, now listen, this very well might be one of those comments that I come back to regret a lot later. But the other thing is that this could actually spell the permanent demise of the Republican Party as we know it.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is if you pay attention to what somebody said something like, tweeted out something to the effect of Elon and JD in 2028, and Elon retweeted that and said yes.
Yeah, well, he said, let's start a third party.
Yeah, and I think and have long thought that he and JD see things much more similarly and have much more in common than he and Trump ever did, and more so than JD and Trump do. And I think JD is sort of the face of the new Republican Party, meaning even from where he's from, right? Like the traditional blue collar Democrat has now been forced to immigrate to the other side, right? And I think JD is representative of that, right? Absolutely. Being from Ohio, growing up, hillbilly elegy, all that kind of stuff. He's kind of the face of the modern blue collar conservative. That's about protecting the middle class and taking care of the working man and all that kind of stuff. And, I think, again, we'll see how this goes. My last big political prediction ended up pretty good, saying that I didn't think Biden would be on the ticket. That seemed like a much safer bet than this does. But I think that this will also serve as the death knell of the modern Republican Party as you know it.
And I have zero problems with that because I think a good third party. I think there are so many opportunities out there to have a conservatarian point of view that would be, I think, so needed that the disgruntled Democrats would be happy with, and the Republicans who are just frustrated with the crony capitalism would lean into. Talking to Zach Abraham, Chief Investment Officer, Bullet Capital. What's it do for the stock? Because it's getting its ass handed to it. And it's already overvalued. You and I have talked about this, but he's got SpaceX. Trump's already threatening to pull contracts. He said, "Fine, I'm going to start decommissioning all my stuff." This is getting more than just the bill. There is other things at play here, and a lot of that also has to do with stock and things of that nature.
Well, yeah. I mean, for instance, the United States at this moment right now, and probably for the foreseeable future, absolutely needs SpaceX, right? I mean, NASA's effectively nothing more than just a relic anymore, right?
Yeah.
Boeing is completely incompetent. At least I've got some hope for new management at Boeing because they got back to their engineering roots. But that the whole job that Elon's, what was it, the Dragon spacecraft or whatever it was, that it did rescuing those folks, that job was supposed to get done by that ship that Boeing developed, right? Yeah. And they couldn't get it together. And so once again, I feel like Trump has a bad habit of getting into scenarios where he comes in thinking he's got a lot more leverage than he does. And I kind of think that you see that kind of playing out in the Chinese tariff negotiations right now.
He gets in over his, he goes with gut, which works sometimes, but when you go with gut, you got a plan. Some of it's going to be great, but there's going to be times you get in over your skis.
Yeah. And again, what's going on in China, I think is very similar, which means, from the very beginning, I was like, hey, We picked the guy. To me, this is all about how this thing ends. And I think you and I talked about it. And I said, look, I wouldn't have gone about doing it this way, but Trump's a pretty good negotiator. And, I'm willing to sit back and, hold my judgment. I think it is abundantly clear now that he came in swinging way too hard. And China just said, hey, call us when you're serious.
Yeah.
And for all the people out there, I don't want you to think I'm bagging on Trump. I'm not. I voted for him. I support him. I support what he's doing.
Call out people that you support.
Then you're a liberal.
Yeah. Well, yeah, your kids, right? Like if my kid does something stupid, I'm going to call him out for it, not say, well, the other guy. No, that's my kid. That's my responsibility.
Chad, here's the other thing that ticks me off, man, especially where we're at, right? The U.S., and I'm not saying it's all gloom and doom. It's not. But the U.S. is in, I don't know if I'd say ICU, but we're banged up pretty good. We're in a compromised position. And this is not at all. And one of the reasons we're in a compromised position is because how just completely unhinged the other side of the political aisle is, right?
Yeah.
Meaning we don't have the time and space for this. And when he first got elected, I remember you and I having a conversation of, you got to do everything above board, man. You got to instill confidence. We've got to get adults back into the room, all that kind of stuff. And you've got the makings for it. But then, like I said today, I watched him start responding to those Elon tweets. And here's the part that I don't get. If I'm sitting there next to him, I'm grabbing his phone going, Donald, what's your upside in this?
Yeah, no doubt.
What does this get you? If you win this Twitter spat, what does the trophy look like? Nothing.
There's no trophy. There's no trophy in any of it.
He should have responded and just said, you know what? Sometimes good friends disagree, but I will never not be thankful for all Elon did for this country. He's a great American. That's all he should have said.
Yeah. It is.
And then explain the big, beautiful bill too, because here's the other thing. And this is what I resent a little bit right now, is that all of those people out there supporting him, get all fired up about eliminating the deficits, getting a balanced budget back on. We went from talking about balancing the budget, which was impossible in 1 year, but we went from in 90 days, balancing the budget, cutting the deficit by $2 trillion to passing a bill that increases the deficit by $2.5 trillion or $0.5 trillion a year. Right. And then
debt ceiling, $5 trillion in 2 years, dude. That is not, in Elon tweeted out, earlier, said, hey, these tariffs, you guys haven't even felt them yet. Wait till the second half of the year and you guys are sitting in a recession. I'm like, I keep saying, I don't know where we're going. I don't even know what tariffs are on at this moment in time, but that's hard to argue.
Okay, so to your point, some really interesting news has been coming in. Okay, so we've had pretty big employment misses on back-to-back days with the unemployment numbers moving up slightly today. And then ADP yesterday, the payroll company, reporting payrolls with a massive miss. Again, these are still data points. One of them does not necessarily mean anything. But then if you look at the GDP numbers, you're going to see what looks like really good GDP, okay? We really dug into this and got really wonkish about this, especially my head of research, because he understands the way that GDP gets calculated. And what he was saying going into this quarter is he goes, look, GDP is going to look artificially strong in the second quarter because of the trade deficit narrowing due to tariffs. But it's like a 1 quarter noise, right? Like it's a screw up in the numbers. Okay, when you start looking underneath that, what you see is virtually, we're talking about name brands here: Lululemon, Nike, Starbucks, McDonald's, Jack in the Box. You go down, so many consumer-facing companies are struggling. Airline companies struggling. Then I saw another one out yesterday that kind of gave me the willies. Now think about this. In this last quarter, HELOC loans have soared to a 17-year high. The last time people were pulling this much out in HELOCs was in 2008. Now, I am not suggesting 2008 is coming. What I'm suggesting is there's two things that explain HELOCs getting hit that hard. One is there's been a big drop in rates and people want to consolidate debt. Well, that ain't the case, right? You got 30-year mortgages still pushing 6.5% to 7%.
Yeah.
Right? You got the 30-year still north of 4 or 5. So that isn't it, right? Why? And I've talked to so many business owners that are saying it's slowing down. I'm talking to construction guys that are like, hey, the good thing is you can find subcontractors. All of them are, they're easy to get now. When you look underneath the surface, man, I will be, unless something really dramatic happens on the trade side, I'll be surprised if you're not in recession in the second half, quite honestly.
Well, if you're worried about what you're going to do with your investments and where things are going, man, this is why we talk to you all the time. What do people do to reach out to you?
Oh, man.
It's important.
Well, I agree. And then the other part about it, and we never promise performance, but it's not just about the U.S. market. We're having a really good year, up double digits on the year. And it's not anything fancy. We're just looking for value stuff outside the U.S. And meanwhile, everybody's bidding up these U.S. companies and nobody's paying attention. There's a lot of in gold and precious metals are going ballistic. And we're licking our chops. I wouldn't want to be long the S&P for the next year. But anyway, people definitely need to get a second opinion. And if not with us, from somebody else. And you need to make sure you're internationally diversified. You need to make sure you got precious metals. We are going into a completely different regime, and it's going to catch people off guard. The Fed can't come to the rescue like they have in the past. So best way to do it is give us a call, bulwarkcapitalmanagement.com, knowyourriskpodcast.com. And we've got another free webinar coming up. We'll talk about that. I think it's about 3 weeks out. But sign up for that at bulwarkcapitalmanagement.com. And like I said, it's not about just Chicken Little, we're going to save you from a collapse. I don't think a collapse is coming. I don't think that's it. But what I do think is that American markets are in a really tough spot. They're obscenely priced. And Lululemon today got blown up after hours, 20% down due to them cranking their profit estimates way back. So meanwhile, outside the country, we got our stocks going up every day. There's plenty of opportunities out there, man.
I love it, brother. I love it. Good talking to you. We'll do it again next week.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Investment advisory services offered through Trek Financial LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. The opinions expressed in this program are for general informational purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual or on any specific security. Any references to performance of securities are thought to be materially accurate, and actual performance may differ. Investments involve risk and are not guaranteed. Past performance doesn't guarantee future results. Trek 24308.